the questions and also leave room for people to ask questions from the audience. And I can't see anyone, so it's hard. I hate Zoom and meetings sometimes because it can be finicky. But just to introduce myself, I'm Michaela Alexander. I'm representing the University of Alabama EcoCard team. I'm a communication manager, but welcome to the Women in STEM panel featuring panelists from the Department of Energy and the National Labs. We're super excited. We got to partner with West Virginia University as well. We have people on the call that are going to help moderate. You see Ryan and Cara. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, but we are here to talk about women in STEM, some experiences that the panelists have faced, and also their career paths, and get a little bit of insight. We do have a video that's going to further explain the importance of women in STEM and these type of panel discussions. Obviously, you can see it in the industry that women make up a small percentage of the STEM workers compared to the US workforce, but people are making strides now to encourage and motivate women in STEM and to go into these careers. So hopefully this event will inspire you as well and motivate you in your student paths to your student. And if you are working in the industry currently, just support women that are in STEM in general. But I'm going to play the video. Hopefully this will pull through.
I think it's really important because I want to see more women.
I think it means a lot to younger girls too when they see someone older in STEM fighting the odds. It shows them that we can be powerful too.
I think I'd be just looking forward to connecting with those women and sharing our experience with other people, and just that open-mindedness that people come and approach it, whether they learn something new that day, or whether they're able to support somebody in their life, one of their loved ones that is a woman that wants to join the field, and encourage them.
Okay. So if the moderators want to come off mute and introduce yourselves, we would like to get started and then also introduce our panelists in the next slide.
I guess I will get started. So hello, my name is Danielle Chow, and I am an American Association for the Advancement of Science and Technology Policy Fellow at DOE in the Vehicle Technologies Office.
I will go next. Hi everyone, I'm Lei Cheng. I'm a chemist at Argonne National Lab. I'm a computational chemist by training, and I'm doing research trying to develop the next generation batteries.
I'll go last. Hi everybody, I am Kirti Kapagantala. I'm a senior scientist and a team lead in the Applied Materials and Manufacturing Group at the Pacific Northwest National Lab. My background is designing material systems with enhanced performance, typically in the conductor space. I also do a lot of work in structural materials, and my focus is a lot of advanced manufacturing processes.
Thank you. And we also had one more panelist, but unfortunately she was sick today from the shot. But we are happy to hear from everyone today. And we have Ryan and Cara here who are going to work through the questions with me. And Ryan, if you want to kick us off, just.
Sure thing. Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan Alexander. I am the communications manager from West Virginia University. It is great to be a part of this to help promote women in STEM. This has been an awesome opportunity for both of our universities to help spread the awareness. So at this time, we will go ahead and kick off a set of questions that we've already compiled. And then after a little bit, we'll open it up to the audience to ask some questions as well.
The first question, just please tell us a little bit about your experiences, where you started and how you ended up where you are now and what you're currently doing. And we can start with Danielle and then work to Lee and then Kirti.
Sure, that sounds great. So I am a mechanical engineer by training, and I went to MIT for undergrad and grad. And my path here has been kind of circuitous. In grad school, I was working on actually frog muscles as actuators. Then ended up switching over, and I worked for 10 years in guidance, navigation, and controls for missiles, intercepting missiles. And then I spent 4 years as a project manager doing that before pivoting to sustainable transportation. And that's how I ended up looking into DOE.
And so I got my undergrad in China. That's where I'm from. And then came to the States for graduate school. I got my PhD in chemistry from Southern Illinois University at Carbondale, and came to Argonne for a postdoc position, and just lucky enough to get promoted to staff scientist as well. Ended up staying here. So my research have been, initially on catalysis. Basically, if you think about your catalytic converters or your vehicles, that helps eliminate all those harmful gases. And I worked on trying to use computational chemistry to optimize catalysts, so that would do that. And then, at Argonne being a place where a lot of the battery research is happening, unavoidably, I got into battery research as well. So right now, my research is on, developing materials and studying the new phenomena in the next generation battery materials for, electric vehicles and also for grid storage.
Ooh, I can go next. So I got my undergrad in India. I'm from India originally. Then I came to the States for my master's and PhD, which I got from Texas Tech University. Back then, I was working with nanotechnology and making metal composites using nanomaterials, graphene and carbon nanotubes for structural and energy properties, energy generation properties, more than anything else. And then right after PhD, I pivoted and got into a professor position at Ohio University. I did that stint for 4.5 years. And was this close to tenure when I realized I really did not want to be a professor for life, because teaching really wasn't pay. So then I pivoted and said, I love doing research, so I'm gonna go to a national lab. And I joined PNNL 2 years ago as a senior scientist. And I've been here, and it's been a beautiful journey. So I still continue working with metal composites, but as against doing more basic research that I was doing in my grad days, now I do manufacturability of metal composites. And it's a pretty cool thing to be at a national lab, because I get to work with academia on one side and industry folks on the other side, and we stand in the between. And try to translate lab scale technologies into something that industry can actually use. So a lot of the work that my group does is what I wanted to do when I was a professor, but couldn't really do that back then. I get to do that now. So that's more fun.
Wow, that's a lot of work, a lot of school from all of you. I can't imagine going all those years. That's crazy. So our next question is, what inspired each of you to go into the STEM field?
I guess I'm not quite sure if we're continuing the same rotation, so I'll just so for me, when I was really young, I thought I wanted to be a doctor, but when I was in middle school, I was watching a basketball game on TV and accidentally stabbed myself in the hand with a pen and almost passed out. And at that point, I realized I'm really bad with blood. And at that point, that's when I decided to pivot. And for a long time, I thought that I wanted to do biomedical engineering. But then due to circumstances and just flexibility, I ended up in the aerospace industry. And yeah, and there were, I think there was an appeal to that aspect because the problems in aerospace and physics are much more clean cut than the problems in biology, I think. And so that was kind of an appeal to me as well. There is a right answer. So that was satisfying.
For me, I guess starting from very early school age years, that I just find subjects like math, physics, and chemistry very fascinating. I just naturally love, following equations and formulas and to solve problems. There's a system to solve all these things. So I just naturally are better at those subjects than some of the others that, requires a lot of boring memorizations. So, I got better at some of the topics, and so I chose to study chemistry as my major, just because chemistry is very useful. It's everywhere. If you everywhere you look, it's a very useful subject. And and then eventually when I finally are smart enough to know how to apply these different majors, and then the classes you take into real world, I just believe that STEM majors are in general very useful to the world. A lot of the new technologies that are changing our world based on a lot of the researchers, a lot of the work that with people with a STEM background. And so I just never looked back, and until today, I find the most challenge, the problem I have of being in the STEM fields. There are so many exciting things and happening every day, and they're changing every day. I find myself fascinated and distracted by a lot of the new things that are emerging. So, but never looking back, and this is the path for me. Yeah.
So continuing the sequence of the order, my answer is pretty close to what Danielle and Lei talked about. So back in school, I was pretty good with math, and it just felt like a normal progression to study math and physics more. When the time came to figure out between engineering and sciences, culturally, my parents expected me to either be an engineer or a doctor, and I'm scared of blood, so yeah, I became an engineer. I took up mechanical. I'm a mechanical engineer by training. I took it up with the understanding that a part of mechanical engineering also focuses on materials development. And back in undergrad days, I clearly saw that for any invention to happen, you first need the material that enables that invention to take forward. So I've been into the material space right from the beginning, and it's just exciting. New things happen every day, and everything comes down to those numbers and theories and equations, and how you translate that into experiments. And I've never looked back from STEM. It's fun. There's poetry in what we do. There's a lot of creativity in what we generate every day. So it's really fun stuff.
Awesome, thank you for that. And so to reverse the order on this question, we'll just go reverse order this time. What did you do yesterday?
Okay, so I go first then?
Yes.
So I'm going to choose to morph this answer a little bit. Off late, my days are mostly sitting in front of a computer and talking to a bunch of people. But the more fun part of my days, so I come when I get into the lab. So right now, I'm a project manager and a team leader. I have a team of about 10, 12 scientists who work in the lab or who do a lot of project management like me too. A part of my job is to go into the lab when they're doing experiments, make sure A, that they're doing everything safely, and then B, that they're doing everything according to the project mandate and stuff like that. So those are the days when I come out alive. It's fun to be around equipment, touch and feel things, look at data as it's getting generated, actually do the analysis, talk it out with people about, okay, I want to see this, I don't want to see that, those kind of stuff. So day before yesterday was a day like that, where I could be in the lab a little bit, talk to a bunch of people, looked at some electrical conductivity measurements that were being done, hung out with a few folks who were doing manufacturing on their end for polymers. And that's one of the atypical days off late because of the COVID situation. But if it wasn't for the COVID situation, that would have been my typical day. Half a day running around in the laboratories, walking and talking to people. I don't actually get to do experiments, but I get to hang out with all the cool people who get to do experiments, and then spend the rest of the day, 4 hours, sitting through meetings or writing reports. And there's a lot of writing, but it's good. It enables the other fun work. So keeping up with that kind of busy work too.
All right, should I go next? All right. So yeah, my day yesterday was also filled with meetings, and just because of COVID, and that's how we collaborate and how we work, right? I had meetings with my collaborators to talk about the progress of our project, And with the postdocs, we talk about, the results that they have and progress of their specific studies. And we talked about the manuscript that we're writing together, because part of doing basic science is publishing journal articles, peer-reviewed. And then I also attended a seminar talk. It's always good to have a continued learning and to find out what others are doing. And then in the afternoon, I'm also helping organizing a conference called Beyond Lithium Ion Conference. So I had a 1-hour meeting with my, organizing committee members and talk about which speakers we should invite to these meetings. And we had the fun part is that we had a virtual group lunch. Ordinarily, we will just go as a group to the Argonne cafeteria for lunch, and we don't get to do that anymore. So it's good to have our time, again, not ideally in front of the computer, but we get to just chat a little bit and connect. It was also, interestingly enough, after my kids went to bed at night, I spent a couple hours every day to actually do my learning on machine learning and AI. And this year, I'm going to try to apply those tools and methods to my own research. Yeah, so that was my day.
All right, and for me, I started my fellowship actually during the pandemic. So instead of talking about that, because I'm not sure it's representative of the real experience, I'll talk about my previous job, in which I was a project manager at the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Lab, or APL. And I was the project manager for Standard Missile 3, Block 1A, 1B, and most of my days revolved around working with my team, my technical team, to address our sponsor's needs. So our sponsor was the Missile Defense Agency. And I loved it because it was such a diversity of technical problems. In the morning, you could be talking about a manufacturing problem, and whether or not it was a mechanical issue with the design, or if it was like an assembly issue, right? And then later throughout the course of the day, we'll go and we'll switch over and talk about, what's going on in our labs, right? Our hardware in the loop labs, we're simulating, in that case, we're simulating a vehicle in space, looking at objects, trying to determine which thing hit. And likewise, sometimes then we would talk about, well, what does the simulation side of this look like, right? What are our results? And a lot of the day was spent like going through products, reviewing information, and then also formulating, trying to understand like what are the sponsor needs, trying to look ahead a little bit and say, okay, we think there's going to be a need for this. What can we do technically to, get ahead of the problem, or to help identify or clarify the solution space? So for me, I loved it because it was working with a lot of different people in a lot of different disciplines.
Well, there's a lot more meetings involved than I would usually think. What is everyone's favorite part about working with the Department of Energy?
Oh, am I going first one?
And national laboratories. Some of y'all aren't with DOE specifically, but
sure.
Oh,
I'll with that then. And I can talk about the national lab side of things. I think there are two things about working in a national lab that I really find interesting. And this is me coming from an academic background. So one is just the nature of the work that I do. So our group particularly is the advanced manufacturing group. So we develop materials and then get them to a manufactured space. So we get to work with, like I said, academic partners, right? People from universities who do a lot of fundamental science research, which is fantastic, because without that, a lot of the technological developments that we're doing are not really possible. But then on the other side, for us, the second pillar that we work with is industry. And industry has a very different perspective from what fundamental researchers do, because industry's drivers are typically profit margins, scalability, manufacturability, capital costs, life cycle analysis, techno-economic analysis. And a lot of these things are not something that a bunch of us learn when we're either in undergrad or grad school. These are different perspectives that you adopt only when you start working in actual, industrial jobs. So to be in the group that I'm in right now, the fun thing is I get to see both of these perspectives and try to marry them, right? Try to get all of us to work together to take one technology right from an idea generation to the point where, 10 years down the line, someone in an industry can actually be manufacturing this material. So that's an incredibly fun part of what I do, because, you track a material or a product's journey all the way around from its inception to actually its deployment. That's really fun. But the second part that I really love working in a national lab is the people. Man, it's such a fun place with all the people around. Typically, right, a national lab has anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 scientists. All of us are driving towards one goal, which is the DOE mission. We all have individual mandates, but all of us are working in tandem to realize the DOE, Department of Energy mission, which means I can find any sort of expertise in this vast network of individuals who are incredibly intelligent, very motivated, love doing what they do. And all I have to do is find the network to tap in, right? So like Lei was saying, I'm new to machine learning. I haven't ever done this before, but this year I'm starting to incorporate that into manufacturable systems. And there's this incredible group of scientists working in a completely different directorate who want to work with me because they are looking for a problem statement and I'm looking at their technology to use here. And in a month, we figured out a new project space, and now we're all very excited and we're doing new stuff and writing papers, and it just goes on like that. All I have to do is walk along the hallway of a building and suddenly there are new project ideas that get germinated. And that's such a cool, exciting thing to do. So the nature of the work is great, but it's the people that make it more exciting every day.
Right. So definitely on a high level, I'm a believer of the mission of DOE, and that's why we work for a DOE affiliated national lab. And there is the happy, medium in between the fundamental research that universities do and then the applied research that industry do. And then we're kind of national lab are there doing both and also bridging the gap. We're not competing with with the industry or anything, but we're kind of bridging the gap, right? And I'm a true believer that some of the research has to be done, with a federal funding level, that some of the companies that are more applied that probably will focus on short-term gains, not long-term gains. And this makes, our research, our work very valuable. And being at a national lab, I will just echo and saying that I love the people, I love the teamwork, and we just have a very collaborative spirit, and we have a close collaboration with, I'm a computational person. I have a close collaboration with the people who are making materials and testing them, and so that I can see, that loop, the things that I predict, the materials I predict will perform really well, and then I get to test out by my experimental collaborators, and then they provide me the feedback, and I'm just seeing that happening is very rewarding. And then we're also very close to all the big world-class facilities. For example, we have the supercomputers located at different national labs, right? And I'm close to one of those. And just being able to work with the people who work on the forefront of that, developing hardware and software, and then just to know that I have a much powerful machine that can enable me to do work that were not even imaginable years ago. And that's another thing I love about working with National Lab as well. Yeah.
And I want to +1 to both of those comments. Totally agree. So DoD has a very important mission, but fundamentally I've been interested in sustainability and climate issues for a long time. And so I was very excited and interested in what DOE is doing. in this space, especially EERE. I would also say one thing I've kind of come to realize so far over the last 6 months during my fellowship is, like, when you're working for the defense industry, the government can say, this is what I want, and it happens, right? It might happen over budget and on a much longer time scale than you expect. But when you're at DOE, it's a very different situation, because it is all about making sure you have technology transfer products and getting them to market in the private sector. And I think that's an interesting and a very different challenge. Some of it is technical and some of it is not. But it becomes also much more relatable to us as common consumers. You know, you can talk about your job and say, you know, I'm building something that's going into a car, or we're developing the technology that's going to go into a car, or you know, a wind turbine, and people relate to that and they resonate with that.
Thank you. And I see that you all have, of course, a variety of backgrounds, whether you got your PhD or the level that you are at in your success right now. So what milestones and goals do you have set for your future careers and future career plans in general? And we can just start, whoever wants to come off mute first.
I guess I will go first. I haven't had a chance. I've been, you know, blessed that I'm always in the middle. So I'll go first with this one. So my short-term goals is that, you know, the usual, I need to manage the business this year. I will, you know, publish my papers and, you know, apply machine learning in my own research kind of 5 years down the road. I wanted to get into a slightly new research space. I'm very interested in synthesis science these days, so I will find the opportunities to get into that space as well. And kind of a longer range, I'm recently doing a lot of program development work for Argonne as well. So just wanted to see kind of the impact that I can bring to that piece of work as well. And I'm also taking this class with the University of Chicago on entrepreneurship for science and medicine. So just thinking about, you know, a lot of the entrepreneurship spirit and mindset can apply to the work that I do, especially with the program development and then program management as well. And you know, that's also kind of on the map of my career path as well, to become entrepreneurs, depending on which path I take. Yeah.
I can go next. So my whole spiel of coming to the National Lab was to build a large program in the material space. Knock on wood, it's been going well. But now we're seeing what is called catastrophic success, in that we have too much work on hand. So now I get to build a nice team. And so for this year and the next year, my job is to keep the program growing at this level. So I work in the functional material space. It's growing by leaps and bounds. In fact, I just walked off from an advanced manufacturing office panel to join this panel. So things have been good. But that also means that I have to now work with the general research community to build a nice team of individuals that I can then hand off all my work off so they can do wonderful things while I continue building the program. And it's fun. It's fun to find like-minded people, provide them with the resources that they can then take on and then just run with it. And I get to sit back and see them do the wonderful job. And yeah. And it's fantastic to be the pseudo mentor for them, someone who can be there if there are problems, but not someone who's actually doing the things in action. I really like that. So continuing to doing that is great. And one of my immediate goals is to learn to delegate, so that I don't do everything at once. And then the longer term goal, of course, is to build this area of functional materials research. So motivating people to publish, motivating people to write a lot in this space, organizing conference sessions, getting a lot of public interest and industry interest in the space continues to be things. And I'm trying to learn machine learning techniques this year to incorporate that into the manufacturability space. That's been a unique challenge because I don't speak the language at all. But like I said, I have wonderful colleagues and friends who are trying to educate me. So continuing to do that in my off space.
Yeah, and I would say for me, the 5-year plan is real. Like, people talk about it and I didn't really believe it, but when I kind of look back over the last 14 years, 15 years, things really do kind of get clumped together in 5-year increments. And 4 years ago, I told myself I wanted to start a program area at APL related to sustainability. And so this fellowship kind of dovetailed with that pretty well. I will say, once you go into a fellowship or any sort of career change, it kind of makes you revisit your assumptions. So I'm not sure what my next steps are, but I do believe that I want to stay in the sustainability space.
I know I'm answering questions, but I have to say, Danielle, I completely agree with what you said. Is when you have a career change, it does make you question your assumptions, right? A lot of things that you decided before going into the job kind of become moot once you actually do take up the job. I've been experiencing that in the last couple of years when I moved from a professor job to a scientist job. And I totally with you. Yeah, it takes revisiting of those 5-year plans all over again.
Yeah, and that, I mean, the uncertainty can also be exciting because you don't know where you're going next.
Right.
And like, so many opportunities are potentially available or open. So
right, absolutely. Like my manager, who kind of launched me here, told me that it's always nice to have a little bit of your time that's not accounted for anything at work, because that opens the possibility of new work coming in, which you weren't really prepared for. And that's true. I completely agree with that. That uncertainty is a challenge, because all of us want to have a good amount of control of the direction that we're taking in, because we want our careers to go into a certain direction. We get that. But managing the anxiety that comes with the uncertainty is also a good thing, because it opens up pathways.
Yeah. And sorry, I'm going to add on to that as well. So one thing I definitely noticed, to make it a little bit more of a dialogue here, is that when I first started working, I was like, okay, nose to the grindstone, right? I'm going to keep focused on my work. This is what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
And after a while, as you get comfortable and you get experience, you're going to find that there are a lot of enrichment activities that aren't directly related to your work, but will end up being useful, right? Like, I walked into a meeting room very randomly that I'd never been in, saw some slides on a table, which happened to be about machine learning for natural language processing, actually. Very, very different. It was related to social media. And I was like, you know what? Kind of want to learn more about this. I'll just email the PI, see where this goes. And then I ended up working on that project for a year and some, not full time. But that was my exposure to machine learning. So you just never know, right?
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kirti. Sorry.
Oh no, I mean, I wanted to say, Kara, I'm so sorry. We jumped into this as from a panel discussion to a dialogue, but I really wanted to.
Yeah, go ahead. Feel free.
No, I'll wait for your next question.
Okay. Well, the next question is, out of everyone's academic and professional experiences, what to each of you has been the biggest hurdle to pursuing a career in STEM, and how did you get over that?
That's a difficult one. For me, I can jump in for this. For me, I think it's the good luck of knowing that I can take a bunch of pathways to fruition and actually trying to figure out which one works best for me. So, this might not be the best answer, but hey, this is a raw answer. Back in the grad days when I was doing my PhD, I had a godlike admiration for my advisor, PhD advisor. She did everything. She did a bunch of DOD projects. She ran a lab with like 15 students. She was an ace teacher, and I just wanted to be like her. I thought the best thing I wanted to do in life was to be like her and become a professor. So I didn't even think about a postdoc. As soon as I was done with a PhD, I jumped into a professor role that opened up, and luck had it, and it was a nice tenure track position, and I just kept going. And like Daniel and I were talking before, it takes a while once you change positions before you wrap your head around the whole, I'm going to take my nose off the grindstone and actually ask myself, am I happy with this or not? And until I made the choice, it's like the whole Schrodinger's cat thing, right? Until you make the choice, you don't know what the outcome is. So once I made the choice and took a direction, I kind of realized that was not for me. And I had soul-crushing 6 months of making the choice of, do I want to keep doing something I don't like but is a safe path, or do I want to stop doing this and pivot into a completely new direction, which is very risky, could fall flat on my face, but still might be something I can enjoy. And so after those 6 months of really difficult conversations with myself, I decided it'd be a waste of life if I continued doing something I didn't like. So I took the plunge, and thankfully everything worked out. With the understanding, I took the plunge that it could not work out, and then I'll have to take another plunge, but that's okay, because I'm still doing something that I feel is worth my time in life. So that is general career advice, I guess. But in STEM, for me, it got compounded with me being a visa employee and being able to function in only specific STEM spaces. So the opportunities had to be just right, especially given that I'm trained to do a very niche kind of a thing, right? I develop materials in a very specific space. And so the opportunity to come by to jump into a different direction took a little bit of time, and it took a little bit of patience and self-talk to wait for just the right thing before I jumped off. But yeah, that was the biggest hurdle, and I'm glad I crossed it so far. Knock on wood.
I guess I'll jump in unless you want to talk, Lei.
Go right ahead.
Okay. I think the biggest hurdle for me has been imposter syndrome. If you all have heard of it. So yeah. So when I first started working, I was in a role where I was programming basically coding simulations to determine their navigational performance. And I had done very little programming in undergrad and grad, mostly focused just in MATLAB, not so much C, C++, Java, any of that. And I was working with guys who had been coding since they were like 7. And they talked all the time, oh, well, did you put the pointer here and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh gosh, right? Like, what am I doing here? But eventually, it was humbling. But eventually I learned, and I, could contribute to the team. But I think what really changed my mind about things was reading the book Lean In. I see Lei's signal of recognition, because to me that is a fantastic book about how you advocate for yourself, right? And maybe it's a little hokey to say, take a seat at the table. But I think when you do, it starts changing your mentality. It's like a small physical action. There's very little responsibility required beyond sitting at the table, right? But it just gets you that little bit closer to mentally feeling comfortable being there. And then on top of that, I think it's also a really important signifier to all the people around you. I want to be here, right? Especially as women, so often we defer and we're like, well, I'm not a big contributor to this meeting, but so are lots of other people who are sitting down. So just embrace it, sit at the table, Another one of the things that came out for Lean In, I actually put together a whole seminar series about it for APL. If anyone's interested, I can send that sort of synopsis. Another thing was like, don't let perfect be the enemy of good, right? So yeah, just some things to keep in mind. Lei, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm surprised by, how similar some of our struggles are really, right? So I definitely had that problem of imposter syndrome as well, but, what came before that is actually I wasn't even trying hard enough because I didn't believe in myself. I mean, was like I didn't know if I was able to keep up. So, I didn't lean in. I didn't sit at the table, right? And a part of me also thought I'm gonna become a mom one day. So, I don't think like, having a career in STEM actually, especially in academia, that means that you have to dedicate more than 40 hours a week to your work. Really, that's just the reality. And how would I be able to do that once I become a mom, right? And then when I was pregnant with my older daughter and my first one, I was actually reading the LinkedIn book, and then this is one of the example that Sherry talked about. One of the female coworkers that he had and made this mistake. I'm like, well, this is me now. Like, I shouldn't do that. I haven't even been there yet. Why do I make that assumption, right? And, because of that mentality, I never leaned in. I was never, sitting at the table. But once I made that change, I would just say, the same experience as Daniel, really, and things are changing for me. And you'll be surprised how supportive the people are to your effort, right? As well. And another thing is, right now I do have this problem of having life and work balance that's hitting me, but I'm managing. That's just because, I had another baby in the middle of COVID. So we're working from home and managing two little ones is challenging, but, I'm still here. And one of my division director, the first time she saw me after I returned to work, she said, thank you for being a mom and still like a working mom, right? And you're trying. So yeah, I would say don't give up. There's a lot of challenge of managing your time and having a life and having a career. Eventually, I think a lot of people will choose to be a mom. That will become something that you're relatable as well. Just don't give up, and so it will pass. You will manage. So only the first couple of years that are hard. Yeah.
So we have about 15 minutes left. So for the time being, we would like to open it up to the audience to ask some questions for our panelists here. If we need some more, eventually we have some more questions as well, but we want to open up to everyone else. You can put into the chat or you can mute yourself and ask questions. So please, this is your time to ask anything.
So there's a question in the chat, I guess.
Yes. I see. I'll just ask it for them, unless you want to come off mute and ask yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I had a question for that. Like, I was like, especially being immigrants and coming for grad school and then looking to make a life out of life out of here in the engineering industry and all that. Me being an immigrant as well, so I came for my undergrad, and obviously I'm gonna go to grad school. That's what my outlook is. But obviously, I want to know how you approached for a fact, like after you did your grad school, how did you approach getting into the industry? Because obviously, some companies, most of the companies nowadays are like, it's hard because they don't offer sponsorship and your opportunities get limited. So I don't know if that was the same case when you guys did your grad school and you ended with grad school. So how did you guys approach it, and what was your thinking?
Um, yeah, I can jump in on this one. It's true that a lot of companies don't offer immigration opportunities. Some do. The national labs do. Universities always do. But it's the trick is to be patient, do a lot of searching, and be very clear about what is it that we want to do when we get out, and what are the workforce options that are out there, and which kind of company aligns with our value system, is doing the kind of work that we are pursuing to do, and has the workplace culture that we can align with, and just keep applying. There's no easy end, or at least for me, it took me an entire academic year of applications, a lot of applications, a lot of writing, a lot of interviewing, to find a set of employers that I was comfortable with, and then make choices from there. So the not so glamorous answer is lots of applications. But if you're in a specialized field, and you start early on, you pretty much know where you want to end up with, or you know the ecosystem that you're working with typically. So having that clear vision always helps. But then I'm also the person who gave the story that I had a vision, and then that vision had to change after 2 years of a job. So being a little flexible with your vision is always a good thing. But having a little bit of an idea of where you want to end up and who are the people you want to work with is an important thing. And in the whole immigrant equation, my original approach was, well, I want to find someone who wants to sponsor my immigration case, and then I want to work with them. But eventually it shifted to, well, I want to find someone who wants me to work for them and for whom I also want to work with. It's a two-way street. So having that mindset before jumping into a job is also a very important thing.
Got it. Thank you.
While we're waiting for questions, I just want to say I wrote the name of that book down because what you guys were saying is kind of giving me an existential crisis right now. That's me too. So thank you so much for that advice. I'm going to read that book.
I
Yeah,
have the
that's
same.
fabulous. Yeah, it's now a bit older, but I think it's, you know, as applicable as ever and at any age.
I'm
I'm curious.
my list of books to read for a while, but after this discussion, yes, I'm gonna definitely read it. Imposter syndrome is a normal thing that a bunch of us suffer from. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so I think, you know, in general, a lot of people suffer from imposter syndrome, but I think definitely it affects a certain demographics like women more than, you know, men. So, you know, that in that sense it's relevant. Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely.
So we just got one from the chat. What is the largest risk you have taken in your career, and how have you been able to learn from it?
I want to keep jumping in for everything, but I have an answer for this one. Okay, I'll keep it brief. I rejected tenure to go be a scientist at a national lab. For me, that's a huge risk because with tenure, you are ensured employment at a university for life, right? That's the thing a bunch of academics work towards. I rejected it because it wasn't making me happy. It wasn't keeping me in my happy place. Like Lei said, right? In academia, you got to work for more than 40 hours a week to keep a lab running with a lot of teaching and stuff. And just being honest with myself, it was evident that I could not do that anymore. And it was soul-crushing, difficult thing to admit, but it was the truth. And then when I rejected tenure and then became a scientist and came here to the National Lab full time, after the first few months of adjustments, my friends told me that I was a happier person, that I didn't have as many dark circles under my eyes, that I looked more healthy. And overall, I felt it was a great work environment to be in because it enabled my dreams and goals and, you know, everything I wanted to do in a given day. So it was definitely worth it, but it was a huge risk. I still get scared when I think about it.
I guess I would just say that any slight career change is a risk or feels risky, but it certainly helps when you make that move, if you're walking towards something, right, and not walking away from something. That is the ideal situation. You know, in my case, you know, shifting from technical to project management, some people thought that was a risk. They're like, oh, well, the joke at APL is the program office is the dark side, and that you kind of lose your technical capabilities. But I completely disagree with that assessment because I never learned more about so many different things. Yeah.
So I'm gonna hop off and off the list of questions we have here just to keep the conversation going a little bit more. Well, we just got a ding. Let's see what this is. My computer's loading slow. Okay, if you could go back and do any part of your career over, is there anything you would do differently?
I'll jump in because I have a fast answer to this, which is definitely, and I wish I had left my GNC simulation role much earlier. I wish I had left it after 5 years, but I just like the people I worked with so much, and I thought, you know, if I keep at it, this, you know, I'm gonna keep getting better, but fundamentally it just didn't make me happy. At the end of the 10 years, I could tell because it was like, can I imagine doing this for another 10? And the answer was, heck no.
Yeah, so I would say that in terms of the research I do now, I'm happy where I am, and I just wish this would happen sooner, which will, mean that if I had a do-over, I would probably try to be more ambitious from the beginning, so that, I can be more focused, more driven, and get to where I am a little faster. Yeah.
Oh, this is so funny because I'm going to say right the opposite of that. Oh, wow.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so then we get to juxtapose two different points of view. Because I would say I'd slow down a little more. I was really driven and ambitious right from the beginning, and had a very strong focus on where I want to do what I want to do, at least through grad school, right? It was like pushing off courses, bam, 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 and had a strong goal and everything. Going back, I would still do all of that, but I'd relax a little bit, take a lot of those non-essential courses in school, maybe learn to play the piano or, dance a little bit or paint more or stuff like that. Because once the career part starts, it will still keep doing the technical stuff quite a bit, which is nice and driving and awesome. But the work-life balance would be a little better with a lot of other side stuff. So I probably would have slowed down a little bit and, smell the roses a little more. But it is so funny. I mean, two of us have such similar journeys, but opposite points of view. I love that.
So we got another question in the chat. If you can give a piece of advice to an undergrad version of yourself, what would it be?
Not knowing is okay. It'll all work out.
I think it would be similar to what Kirti said before regarding relax a little, because I was really focused on classes and P-sets and so forth. And I'm super glad I did a study abroad. I did a year in Cambridge, and that was fabulous because I got to backpack all over Europe. But the rest of undergrad, I'm like, I wish I had done, the pottery, class, or done sailing, which I did, but I wish I'd gotten more into it, right? But it's all these little things. It's all the non-academic things you're like, I wish I'd done more of.
Yeah, I would say for me that I will probably have explored my options a little more, just to avoid some of the paths that that didn't ultimately contribute to the path that made you happy at the end. You don't necessarily know when you're undergrad when you're young, right? But there are help out there that you could have explored a little more. And it's important that you work on something that you're passionate about. And that makes a lot of the hard work, worth it, and you actually stick to your plan.
And not because we're actually talking in a panel, but I do want to say this to undergrad folks out there. What we think of a job and what it actually is are two very different things. So it is always helpful to talk to people who are actually doing the job that you want to do to understand what the ground realities are. Discussions like this are great, or finding a network. LinkedIn is a great place, and a lot of people that I reach out to are really happy to talk about what their day-to-day life looks like. So when you're at the point where you're trying to make choices about which career path to take or what is it that you want to do for 8 hours a day, it's always nice to talk to people who are doing that today to tell you what the trials and tribulations are, because it's not all, we don't have information at that time about what it is. We're projecting something. So talking to folks before making choices is always a good thing. And relaxing is always a good thing. It's fine. It'll work out.
Well, I'd say with a slight twist there, a lot of times roles are not as rigidly defined as you think. Okay. And if you will always put your own spin on it, right? And you will make a job or a role what you want it to be. And even though it might be exactly the same position when someone else hires in for it, they're going to take it in a different direction.
Right.
Yeah, I'll just add to that, that relate to the early question of the risk that you take as well, right? Every time you make a change, there is opportunity cost. So there's also what you can make that position to be, your own version of that, and just find the growth of that as well. Yeah.
All right, so we have just a couple minutes left in this. So if there's any last minute question from the audience, this is your last chance for it. So if anything else, please fire away.
And I just want to say I'm extremely grateful from hearing y'all's perspectives. Of course, I'm a communication manager, so I don't understand probably like a lot of the things that y'all do on a regular basis, but it is cool to hear that we have similar experiences as well in dealing with positions and imposter syndrome and things like that. So I do want to thank each of you for showing up today and giving your insight, and then also giving some motivation as well to students in STEM. And I'm ready to check out that book. I've been slacking on the book, so shout out to y'all for that. And then also want to thank Heather and Connie from DOE for coordinating this all together. Y'all are awesome. It ended up being really great turnout. But if we don't have any other questions, do y'all have anything last minute that you would like to say to undergraduate students or graduate students about a piece of advice or a takeaway? You can say that now, but we are going to close out.
I guess I'll add one more thing because I can't stop talking, which is the skills that you use in the workplace are much more varied than just an academic training would tell you, right? You mentioned your job as a communications manager. Communications is a critical part of any job, regardless of what industry it's in or what role you're in. So play to, some people, I think the thinking here is kind of conflicting, right? Some people say play to your strengths. Some people say, bolster up your weaknesses. Personally, I think it's easier to play to your strengths and find someone who's good at the things that you're weaker on. But definitely, it's not just knowing how to do a problem set, right? Work entails a lot more than that.
Thank you. And I hear the chat's blowing up with a lot of thank yous. So again, we appreciate y'all, your time, and everything that y'all have said today was very insightful. And hopefully we'll cross paths eventually. I'm actually going into the STEM field with my major. I'm working for Raytheon Technologies in the future. So we may cross paths in the STEM field eventually. So we'll see.
Congratulations.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for
being. Thank you.
It's been incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. I see the comment. I will send the lean-in presentation to someone on the EcoCard team.
Thank you.